Hi, Math 143. I wanted to take some time and give you another example of Simpson's paradox that happened a few years ago at, I think it's the University of California. We're going to look at the web page with some really nice visualizations of this somewhat abstract concept. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my face and show you the computer, and then we're going to go through this website and show you some stuff. Alright, so I'm going to minimize me. And so here we have this web page. This is budlabs.com/Simpsons. So we've got a lot of data that's going on, and it's going to talk about Simpson's paradox. So what happened is that the University of California, Berkeley, was accused of sex discrimination against females, saying that 44% of male applicants were admitted, but only 35% of female applicants were admitted. So they had a much higher acceptance rate of males than females. But, of course, when we look at the disaggregated data, we can see something maybe a little bit different. And the researchers noted if the data are properly pooled, then there's a small but statistically different significance bias in favor of women, contrary to being against women. And you see that their document was 403 pages long. So here was the breakdown of acceptance rejected. So 44% of men were accepted, 35% of women. So a lot more women were not accepted to UC Berkeley's graduate school. So what happens is, in this part, they're looking at breaking down the acceptance based on department. And so like your math department, your English department, your history department, or maybe they call it social studies, social sciences departments. They broke that down into 6 different departments, and they just named them A through F. They needed anonymity to conduct the research. And here's the breakdown that you find. So in this case, in Department A, 82% of women were accepted and only 62% of men. Or in Department B, 67% of women were accepted compared to men 63. And if we continue that process, they have highlighted in a bold font those where women were accepted more than females. And so there was 3 departments. So 3 departments where women were accepted more, and the other half men were accepted more. Or like over here in Department F, there was only 1% difference in men versus women, men being 1% more. Very hard department apparently to get into. Very low acceptance rate into that department. So one great thing about this website, it allows us, this is the disaggregated data. We're looking at it broken down, but we can aggregate it to see now that 30-46 split. So 30% were accepted, 46 were, 30% of women were accepted, 46% of men were accepted. When you bring them all together in this way, based on the pooling of the departments. So, what did they conclude? And this is something you could play around with, is that based on this, women are a little more favored. In fact, in some departments, such as Department A, they were highly more favored. Now, there may not have been as many women applicants as there was men. There were a lot fewer women applicants, but Department A definitely had a heavier amount of acceptance for the females that did apply. And I love this illustration that here we see it broken down. The disaggregated definitely shows that it's like a 50-50 split. But when you combined it, it seems to exaggerate what is being said, that men were accepted more often than females, when in fact we don't always have that in the disaggregated view of Simpsons. And so as a quick last illustration here that they have is this dynamic graph and table over here that as I change stuff, it is going to change also. And down here, it's going to tell me, is what I'm doing or what I have here an example of Simpson's paradox? So what I have set up currently is an example of Simpson's paradox, and I'm going to put them in an equal so that it's not. And over here on this graph, on the horizontal axis, we've got percent applied to the easy department, quote unquote, and going upward, we have percent admitted. So, for example, if we have a lot more women, like let's say 100% of women applied to the easy departments and 80% were admitted, then we don't have a Simpson's paradox. But if I move that percent of women just below, just below men, where these two lines right here meet, going just below that percentage, then it creates a Simpson's paradox. And you can also notice what happens in the table. So here when they're even, we've got these four right here looking about the same. Numbers are different, but each of the percents that's filled are about 50%. But we sort of have an imbalance, but not a huge imbalance here. And the percent admitted are over in these four. But the minute that the women drop down and have a huge imbalance here, not as much here necessarily, but you do get a Simpson's paradox due to the overall seen here. The same can be said if the men, it has to be that the women are lower than the men. So like let's put the men right here even. Notice I'm waiting for this green bar, or the bar corresponding to the green dot. Once it falls below the men's, even though the percents are different here, I'm waiting for that to get below, and then boom, I have a Simpson's paradox, because I look at this imbalance of percent applied to the easy department of men, and where women's kind of got it split even. Like you got 80% of men applying to the easy department, and then of those, a lot were also admitted. But the minute that threshold is met or exceeded, then you switch over from yes to a no. So I hope that is a little bit illustrative and that you get something out of that. You can go play around with that. That's linked inside of Blackboard in our section 1.1 learning module. And again, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.